Hello, my name is David today, and I am a recovering alcoholic. I'm here to read the Daily Reflections book for September 21st, 2025. It's called The Last Promise. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. That's from Alcoholics Anonymous, page 84. The last promise in the big book came true for me on the very first day of sobriety. God kept me sober that day, and on every other day I allowed Him to operate in my life. He gives me the strength, courage, and guidance to meet my responsibilities in life so that I am then able to reach out and help others stay sober and grow. He manifests within me, making me a channel of His word, thought, and deed. He works with my inner self while I produce in the outer world, for He will not do for me what I can do for myself. I must be willing to do His work so that He can function through me successfully. Period. The end. There's probably a lot in here I could talk about, and I don't know if I'm going to right this second. You know, what did yesterday's reading say? HP as guide, and it mentioned that thing, the great fact, with capital letters, a big capital G for great, and a big capital F for fact. And I mentioned that I hadn't, at least to my recall yesterday and today, I don't recall ever seeing that, the great fact anywhere other than maybe in this reading for that day in this book and any other copy of this book. And then it says somewhere down here, let me just read it. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. And that, it says, this is a great fact for us. So the right relationship with the higher power, and great events will come to pass. Further down in the text over here on yesterday's reading, it says, I went down on my knees and, with nowhere else to turn, I went down on my knees and cried, God, I can't do this. Please help me. It was when I admitted my powerlessness that a glimmer of light began to touch my soul, and then a willingness emerged to let God control my life. With Him as my guide, great events began to happen, and I found the beginning of sobriety. Now, if that was truly the beginning of sobriety for this writer, do you suppose this writer had the same kind of experience when he says the last promise? He suddenly realized that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. The last promise in the big book came true for me on the very first day of sobriety. God kept me sober that day, and on every other day, I'm kind of paraphrasing, that I allowed Him to operate in my life. He gives me the strength, courage, and guidance to meet my responsibilities, so that I'm then able to reach out and help others stay sober and grow. He manifests within me, making me a channel of His word, thought, and deed. He works with my inner self while I produce in the outer world, for He will not do for me what I can do for myself. I must be willing, there's that word again, to do His work so that He can function through me successfully. Maybe one immediate example, I didn't feel like doing any of this today. That's fairly accurate. And then I planned, I'll just do the reading and try and keep my mouth shut. And then I couldn't help myself because of that thing yesterday, the great fact. still kind of rolling around in my head. And then it dawned on me that this person here is saying, well, when you think of the stuff that God's doing for us, what we can't do for ourselves, how does that come to be? I'll guess at that it's this phrase over here, please, God, I can't do this. You know, God is doing for us what we can't do for ourselves, could not do. So now this willingness. In my case, way back when I was getting sober, I called it desperation. My willingness to follow anything in this program, which I mentioned, I just decided right away early in my sobriety the second time around when I got out of treatment. I'm going to die if I keep drinking. Well, and I had that, the alcoholic's paradox, that if I keep drinking, I'm going to die. And if I don't have a drink, I'm going to die. Where does that leave you? That leaves you with these suggested 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't know what else you have. I didn't have anything else to lean on, so I went to treatment, got out of treatment, understood that these 12 steps are the things that maybe the only suggestions anybody has, because, you know, way back when, before, say, 1930, prior to, we'll just keep it conservative, before 1937, if you were deemed somebody to be, I don't know, too drunk to save or whatever, they just lock you up in the asylum. And that was it, because nobody had any ideas, really, and I don't want to get into all this whole thing, but AA started roughly in 37, and not my point today, man. And if you've been watching any of my videos, man, I'll just go off on that, and I won't get to this thing that the last promise, meaning I don't know exactly. I'll have to say that, because I don't know for sure what they mean by the last promise. If it's the last promise, people call this the 9th step prayer and the 9th step promises. That's on, here, let's read those maybe. I'm going to run out of time with all this preface. In the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book on page 83, I think it is, in the chapter called Into Action, I wrote here on the top of the page the promises, and way down towards the bottom of the page, if you can see that blue little mark, that bracket, the last paragraph on page 83, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That's what I'm trying to impart here. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. Yes, it will. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. All those things. These promises right now are coming true. I didn't feel like doing this. I lost interest in my selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. You people out there. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. And then that's the end of that's the last promise, I think. Okay? Because then it goes into, this thought brings us to step 10. Excuse me. So that, that's saying that the step 9 have the promises. The last promise, are these extravagant? We think not. They are being fulfilled. They will always blah blah blah, and all that. Now in today's reading, which is in the 9th month, it says the last promise. Suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Right before that, in that paragraph, it said, we will intuitively know how to handle things that used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do ourselves. And I said, I made emphasis on this word, willingness. And when my definition, I don't know, back in the day, or even somewhat today, of the word willingness, I think of somebody that's got everything all together, and it's like, I got some spare time. I think I'm going to go do something nice for somebody else. Some kind of thing like that. A do-gooder, I use the word so infrequently. The people, I can't think of the word. Never mind. And my willingness wasn't of that type when I was like leaving treatment for the second time. Because of the condition I was in when I went there, I was, like it says in the big book again, I was willing to go to any length to stay sober, to get sober, to stay sober. And that's also why I mentioned it wasn't that difficult not to drink in treatment, because I was in the alcoholic's paradox and I didn't know what else to do. I went to treatment. They locked me up. They fed me. They gave me a place to live. They kept me alive. They taught me some things from Alcoholics Anonymous and other fields of, psychology and whatever. I didn't need like a big lengthy detox, so thank God for that. I just quit drinking actually like 5 days before I even went into treatment. It's a big long story. I don't have time to give you all the high points were my employer and myself came to an agreement that I was going to have some time off to go do what I needed to do, and that was to enter treatment and get clean off of drugs and alcohol. It was mainly just, I think it was almost, it was mainly alcohol with a heavy dose of caffeine and nicotine that I was also addicted to. And, I don't want to get all into that either because I'm losing the point here about my definition at the time of willingness. I didn't feel like I had it all together, and now I'm willing to share all my great knowledge with other people. You still can't think of that word. It's a very apt word. But what my willingness was a desperation for myself to get sober. So it's like, okay, if I get locked up, you're free to leave at any time. So anyways, there's some willingness there that I didn't leave the joint, right? I stayed there, anyhow, because again, the desperation of the need, the absolutely critical need for me to get dried out, to clean up my act, to get off of the initial, massive withdrawal from alcohol, because my body, man, physiologically, I was addicted to this stuff. Psychologically, I was 100% addicted to alcohol. But then I learned, and I figured also that it wasn't, alcohol was a symptom of something else. And that's what really started to get untied and unwrapped in treatment. It's like, I don't drink because I have this enormous fondness for the taste of tequila with a worm in it, or some kind of thing like that. I I don't know if I really like the taste of alcohol, especially like the straight shots of whiskey with all that burning pain and or whatever. And it's the after effect though, right? The warming glow and then the dulling of comprehension and just going like everything's fine. That's why like step one, the powerlessness and unmanageability. That alcohol fixed a lot of things that I wasn't willing to deal with myself. This thing God was doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Well, that's like everything, basically, because any kind of issue I had when in my drinking days, I would give up way too soon. I wouldn't even hardly try to fix anything myself until I had a drink in me. It's like, here, I don't like these bills. I need a drink. And then get a drink and then just be like, just throw the bills over here. I can't afford that. I need to buy more booze. And that's about as far as my, working on myself and solving problems went. It was just to start drinking at the first sign of any kind of difficulty. And that went for an amazingly long time. And by the time I wound up in the Alcoholics Paradox, I was broke and stripped of everything. In a couple days, it's just an ugly story I don't want to talk about right here, right now. And so it was through my desperation of needing to get sober that gave me the willingness to believe anything, all these promises. To even consider that some kind of promise. What did it say exactly in the book here, Alcoholics Anonymous? Were these extravagant promises? I'm like, what kind of a smoke job are you trying to give me here? Are these extravagant promises? We think not. I was skeptical, to say the least, about that early on, even in treatment early on, or maybe only in treatment early on, and then by the time, like, I don't know, almost somewhere around the graduation week or whatever they called it, which was, I think, about the 6th week that time around, they were being fulfilled among me. These extravagant promises that we're going to know serenity, we'll know peace, no matter how far down the scale we've gone. Our experience can benefit others. Because, like, man, I got to get rolling on this thing. When I first came in, man, it's like I just came out of the gutter and now I'm in a clean house. Wow, this is nice, and it's warm in here and all that kind of thing. And people care. They did genuinely care. The interns or the nurses and the doctors, my counselor, they care. Why else would they have that job? They all genuinely cared. That was a nice feeling. I didn't accept it though, not right away. You don't know me. How could you even care? Okay, and so altruistic, altruistic. I didn't have a sense of willingness to believe these extravagant sounding promises because I didn't see myself as a very altruistic person, just doing good for the sake of the other person, I think. The only reason I was willing to do any good for anybody was I didn't want to die, so it was desperation, and then that did grow more into a more positive outlook on life, I think. That promise, that's a good one, because again, right in there it says, and now remember, we're in the 9th month. We're talking about 9th step things. We make this list in step 8 of the people we harm. Step 9, we attempt to amend these harms, these damages that we hurt, these relationships that we wrecked, and we try and make some kind of amend. So today's title is The Last Promise, and then I'm going right back to the big book again, to the Last Promise, which is found somewhere right there at the bottom of page 82. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we're going to run out of time. We will be amazed before we're halfway through. And there's a bunch. Anyways, we will comprehend. Here's part of the big promise stuff here. We will comprehend the word serenity right there. And we will know peace. Wow. You know, I mean, just yesterday we were talking, it mentions the chaotic life. And, you know, I mean, what, let's see, how can I wrap this up in the next 40 seconds? This thing about finding a power greater than yourself, even if it's only the AA group around you, even if that's only one other person in your AA group, if they seem to have something that you don't, and they're sober, and they're even sort of happy or content, I would call that a higher power bigger than whatever you're dealing with, maybe. I mean, if you're just utterly lost about this, like I was. And it's like, well, that's an example. This person is a power greater than myself. That can give you the courage and the serenity and the hope and the energy to try and help the other people. That's probably why that other fellow's sitting there across the table from you. Okay, so, I don't know, man. Thank you for coming by here. And goodbye.